They say life has a strange way of turning small acts into life-changing moments. For one young woman, that truth revealed itself in the most unexpected way. It all began with something so ordinary, something so small, that most people wouldn't even think twice about it. She was at the grocery store, standing in line like everyone else, when she noticed an elderly man in front of her. His hands trembled slightly as he reached for his wallet, fumbling with worn-out bills and loose change. He looked tired, as if the world had already taken too much from him. The cashier scanned his groceries, and the total was read out. But when the old man searched his pockets, it became painfully clear he didn't have enough. The people in line behind him grew impatient, sighing and shifting from foot to foot. Some rolled their eyes, as though this elderly man was nothing more than an inconvenience to their busy day. The cashier's polite smile was fading, replaced by that look people wear when they're tired of waiting. The young woman noticed. She noticed not just his empty wallet, but his defeated shoulders, his quiet apology under his breath, and the way he looked down as if he wished he could disappear. That was the moment she made a decision. Without hesitation, she stepped forward and told the cashier to add his groceries to her bill. The old man looked at her, his eyes widening in surprise. For a moment, he didn't know what to say. His lips trembled as he tried to form words, but all that came out was a choked "thank you." His voice carried more than gratitude. It carried years of struggle, pride, and the weight of a man who wasn't used to being helped. The young woman smiled and brushed it off like it was nothing. She told him not to worry, that everyone needs a hand sometimes, and it was the least she could do. But she didn't realize, in that very moment, that this least she could do would set into motion something far bigger than she ever imagined. To her, it was just a kind gesture. To the people in line, it was a random act of generosity. But to that old man, it was something entirely different, something she couldn't possibly know yet. Later that evening, as she settled into her home, her day seemed like any other. She replayed the grocery store moment in her head, not because she expected anything from it, but because it had simply felt good to help. But then, hours later, the sound of engines cut through the quiet of her street. She glanced outside, and that's when she saw them. 3 black SUVs pulled up in front of her house, their dark windows hiding the faces inside. Her heart skipped a beat. She wasn't expecting anyone, and certainly not something like this. At that moment, she realized her simple act of kindness had reached far further than she could have ever predicted. The SUVs remained parked for a moment before the doors opened. Men in sharp suits stepped out, their movements deliberate, their presence commanding. Neighbors peeked from behind their curtains, whispering about who could be inside and why they were there. The young woman stood frozen, unsure whether she should open her door or pretend she wasn't home. But then, from the middle SUV, the old man from the grocery store stepped out. She blinked in disbelief. He looked different now, confident, composed, and with an aura of authority that she hadn't seen earlier. Gone were the trembling hands and weary posture. He wasn't carrying worn-out bills or fumbling with change. Instead, he walked with purpose, surrounded by people who seemed to treat him with deep respect. As he approached her door, she hesitated but finally opened it. He smiled warmly, and for the first time, she realized there was far more to this man than met the eye. He began by thanking her again, but this time his voice carried a strength she hadn't heard before. He explained that the groceries had not been about the money. He had more than enough wealth to afford them. What he lacked in that moment was something money couldn't buy: genuine compassion from a stranger who didn't know who he was. The men in suits, they were not random associates. They were his security team. The black SUVs, his mode of travel. The old man she had thought of as poor and struggling was, in fact, one of the wealthiest men in the region, known not for flaunting his riches but for keeping a low profile. He revealed that he often dressed plainly and went out without revealing his true identity. It was his way of staying grounded, of remembering what life was like outside the world of privilege. And in her, he had found something he rarely experienced anymore: authentic kindness without expectation. Then came the moment that truly left her speechless. He told her he hadn't come just to thank her, he had come to change her life. He explained how he had spent years searching for people who still carried genuine compassion in their hearts, people who gave without looking for something in return. He believed that those who showed kindness when they thought no one important was watching were the people who deserved opportunities. In her, he saw a rare quality. And so, he offered her something extraordinary: his mentorship, his backing, and his promise to support her dreams, whatever they might be. The young woman was stunned. She tried to explain that she hadn't done anything special, that anyone in her place might have done the same. But he shook his head firmly. Not everyone would. Many would look away. Many would dismiss. Many would think it wasn't their problem. But she chose differently, and that choice had not gone unnoticed. Over the following weeks, her life began to transform. The old man kept his word, opening doors she had never even dared to knock on. He introduced her to people in positions of influence, gave her resources she had never imagined having, and supported her ambitions as though they were his own. The story spread quietly at first, shared by those who had witnessed the SUVs pulling up to her modest home. Whispers turned into conversations, and soon people began to ask, who was she, and why had this mysterious figure taken such an interest in her? The truth, however, was simple. She had helped someone when no one else would. She had treated him not as a burden, not as an inconvenience, but as a human being worthy of respect. And in a world where kindness often goes unnoticed, her small act had caught the eye of someone who had the power to change everything. Her life was never the same again. And as she looked back, she realized the lesson was clear. You never know who you're helping, and you never know how far a single act of compassion can reach. What began as paying for an old man's groceries became the moment that rewrote her future.